So today I'll be reviewing a real college admissions essay that was submitted by a student. To protect their privacy, some details have been changed, but everything else is the same. And if you'd like me to read your essay in a future video, stick around to the end and I'll show you how. For context, I graduated from Dartmouth almost 20 years ago, and I've spent years helping students in my church and community with their college essays. I'm not a former admissions officer. I'm not here to advertise an admissions consulting business. I don't have a business. I'm just doing this because I know that the college admissions process can be hectic and confusing, and I just want to help in some way. Now, whenever I read an essay, I evaluate it using what I call the 3 E's. The first is engagement. Does the essay make me want to keep reading? Does it have a good hook? Is it a compelling topic? The next is engineering. How well is the story constructed? Does it have good structure? And finally, execution. How well is it written at the sentence level? After I'm done giving my live reaction to the essay, I'll give my score for each of these metrics. Oh, and one last thing, this is a rough draft, not a final submission. Right now it's June, and honestly, this is the best time to be making mistakes. The goal right now isn't perfection, it's getting the story on the page. All right, so let's get started. So why can't I be like everyone else? Everyone else seems fine, but I feel like I'm drowning. Every day I go to school and talk to my friends, yet when I come home every night, I feel so alone, like there's no one there for me. Maybe these people just aren't for me. Everything feels fine when I'm with my friends from Central High School. Meeting them once a week at church makes me feel like a normal person. It feels freeing. Being with them doesn't sound so bad. Yeah, not a great first paragraph in terms of hook, in terms of making a reader want to continue reading. It's a lot of descriptions about how they're feeling, drowning, feels freeing, but it's, in screenwriting, they talk about show, don't tell. This is a lot of telling, and there's a lack of specific examples, of imagery, just specifics of what exactly they're talking about. Like, I just don't know what they're talking about right now. Clearly they're going through something negative. They're going through a very negative experience, but this is a lot of words being used to describe something very amorphous. I would guess that this is probably around 100 words, maybe a little less than that. 650 words is not a lot of real estate, right? So you have to be very judicious about how are you going to use that word count. And if you're using, more than 10% of your word limit on things that are not going to hook the reader, that's wasted potential. That's wasted space. Okay, let's keep going. Second semester, sophomore year. After over a year of contemplating, I talked to my counselor who helped me submit my application to switch schools to Central High School. Okay, so I guess I'm starting to get some specifics in terms of the, like the who, what, where, when, why, like the very basic details. Second semester, sophomore year, after over a year of contemplating, I'm guessing that the first paragraph is happening during their freshman year. Things like this, when you're trying to recount events, these things have to be specific. I don't know what time this is happening, and that's important if you're trying to recount a very specific event in your life. Okay, after over a year of contemplating, I talked to my counselor who helped me submit my application to switch schools to Central High School. A few months later, I got accepted. I finally got my fresh start. Despite this, walking through the doors on my first day, I was nervous. I knew I had friends in the school, yet there were so many people I didn't know. I felt so unfamiliar, seeing so many faces I didn't recognize. I felt lost. Okay, so I think I can start seeing the dilemma. So they switched schools thinking that it was going to solve their problem, but now there's a bigger problem. Honestly, that's good. I get that the writing is kind of masking the core premise, and the core premise seems to be good. Not a lot of people switch schools, and of those, not a lot of those, I'm guessing, switch back. So that's a very interesting premise. Okay, the problem here is, okay, despite this, walking through the doors on my first, okay, no, a few months later, I got accepted. I finally got my fresh start. I mean, honestly, this first paragraph is not needed. It can just start here. I mean, yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of finessing to make it a proper, feel like more like an intro. But there's another principle when it comes to screenwriting, storytelling, which is to start as late as possible, meaning right before the action, the most important, the relevant thing happens. And honestly, this is where the action happens. They go through the process of switching schools and they get accepted. And now they're getting their fresh start, except that it's not really what they expected. Might as well just start there, right? Class by class, day by day, I would walk in and out of classes feeling like a ghost, trying to make new friends that I didn't know felt impossible. I managed to talk to a few people here and there, but everyone was already in their own groups. Trying to find people outside of mine seemed unfeasible. Even when I saw my friends during lunches and after school, I felt confused. Did I make the wrong choice? Did I take what I had for granted? I felt more confused than ever. Okay, yeah, again, a lot of telling and not showing. You really have to show, don't tell. You always have to assume that the reader is smart, is intelligent, like they get it. You don't need to handhold. If you write a specific example of something that happened, like for example, a scene where they tried to talk to some people, but they were already in their group, or what happened when they would see their friends during lunches? Did you see them like at a table with other people that you didn't know, and you thought it would just be like going to church, but it actually wasn't? There needs to be these specific scenes rather than opting to use descriptions like I felt confused. Also, it repeats itself. I felt more confused. I mean, it's just double talk. Yeah, it's just a description of what's going on rather than showing. See, if you paint a good scene, you don't need to tell the reader how you're feeling. The reader will fill in the gaps themselves, and it'll feel more compelling to them because they're the ones that are feeling it instead of you just telling them how to feel, essentially. Okay, so I spoke to some of my friends at my old school about how lost at this new school. Okay, so some grammatical issues and how I hadn't felt like this before. Maybe it was an impromptu decision, but after a week, I felt like I had to go back. Okay, interesting. I knew my parents wouldn't be happy with this, seeing how they only wanted to see me give something my all. It wouldn't look like it in this scenario, but I felt trapped. I spoke to my guidance counselor at Central High School, and they helped calm my nerves before speaking to my parents. Yeah. In one sense, I want more specifics about what happened in that week. And at the same time, I feel like this paragraph is, if you're not going to describe a lot of things, or if you're not going to paint a picture, this paragraph could be reduced to maybe just one or two sentences, because it's not him doing anything yet. They're just describing how they're feeling and not really taking much action. That's where a lot of the focus of your college, your Common App essay and your other essays have to be. They have to be very action oriented, because the reader, the college admissions counselor, wants to know, what did you do? Okay, yes, you're faced with these issues. You've spent this is probably like 250 words describing the problem. But these are all things that are happening to you. I mean, save for that decision to switch schools in the first place, which honestly needs to be, I think, expanded a little bit more. These are all things that are happening. Most of these things are happening to this person rather than them doing something to change the outcome or discovering anything about themselves. Yeah, so it's just a lot of real estate being spent improperly. Okay, after school ended, I decided to go to Starbucks and decided, another more double talk, that I would tell my parents that after school ended, I decided to go to a Starbucks and decided that I would tell my parents that Thursday night. It's interesting that there's a specific detail here when there really doesn't need to be. Those specific details should have been utilized prior to that. Despite this, I couldn't help but be nervous. Yeah, so nervous, confused. I mean, these are a lot of descriptions of how they're feeling. Again, the scenes need to paint the picture of you being nervous, not just you saying that you're nervous. Like, are his hands shaking as he's typing this? See, I sat there and decided to send a well thought out email to communicate my emotions properly, knowing my words would not come out the way I want them to if I didn't. Yeah, okay, so again, if you're trying to communicate that you're nervous, you could paint the picture, like, are your hands like shaking as you're typing? Like, like those kinds of things. Like, you don't need to tell the reader that they're nervous. That's hand holding them. You let the scene speak for itself. But I mean, the larger issue is, why talk about writing the email? I mean, I want to know what this email says. I don't really I'm not too concerned about what the process was surrounding the email writing. I want to know what the email said. Knowing my words would not come out the way I want them to. Honestly, a great hook would be if they opened up this essay by giving an example of a line from this email that they sent to the parents. I mean, you could see it being sort of like, for those who have written college essays, you've seen this before. You open up with the scene, which is kind of a fast forward of what happened in the future, and then the next paragraph or the next sentences kind of give some more context, some more background about what's happening prior to this, whatever's happening in the first sentence. So, for example, I'll just make something up. Mom, Dad, I made a mistake, in quotation marks. If that's your first line, I mean, that's a better hook than what this person has as their first paragraph, which is a lot of descriptions of how they're feeling. When my mom picked me up, I knew it was time. The whole ride home was silent, no words spoken. When I got home, I opened the door and saw my dad sitting at the table. I sat down and listened as my parents understandably berated me. Time moved in slow motion, and as tears began running down my face, my throat closed up as well, like it was being wrapped in chains. Okay, I mean, vivid imagery, sure, but it's trying to give more weight to the emotions that they're feeling, rather than justifying why those emotions are there in the first place. Okay, so let me just keep reading. I could barely get any words out as my parents' words felt like daggers digging into my skin, telling me you didn't give it enough time and you're just running from your problems. Eventually, okay, grammatical issue, missing a close quote. Eventually, their words came to a halt. As much as they showed their disappointment, they let me go back, wanting the best for me. All right, so this is clearly the climax of this essay. The problem is, okay, when I got home, I opened the door and saw my dad sitting. Understandably is kind of confusing to me. Maybe it's understandable to the writer, but with how this essay has been written thus far, and because we don't know a lot of what happened before, like specific examples of why they wanted to switch schools the first time, and then specific examples of why they wanted to switch schools the second time, I'm honestly siding more with the parents, if I'm being totally honest, because maybe this is the Asian in me, but why wouldn't they berate you? If it was all just emotions, if there was nothing that actually happened and it was all just feelings, then yeah, that's not really a good justification for wanting to switch back. And also, the writer makes it seem like switching schools was pretty easy. I'm sure it's not easy. You have to submit an application. But the way they've written it is, it makes it seem like it was very easy. If it's not described as an arduous process, then why would the parents have such a problem with it? My guess is that because it was a very time-intensive, labor-intensive process to switch schools, not only for the student, but also for the writer, but also for the parents, that is why they berated him. But because we don't know what the process was like, and also the reasons why they wanted to switch twice, it's confusing. There's not a lot of justification for why the parents would be understandably berating the writer. But I mean, I get it. It's the climax, right? And I think this, yeah, okay, I'll talk more about structure later. You're just running from, okay. As much as they showed their disappointment, they let me go back, wanting the best for me. Again, this kind of paints the parents as more level-headed than perhaps what the writer intended. Going back wasn't the best either, explaining to everyone, especially my counselor, that I was back. Going back wasn't the best either, explaining to everyone, especially my counselor, that I was back and how I had a midlife crisis at 15. Okay, so sentence is a little bit off. Despite this, I had realized that what made hanging out with my church friends so enjoyable was that it wasn't an everyday thing, making it special. I had compared my situation to these feelings, teaching me not to compare my lows to other situations' highs. Eventually, I made new friends at my old school, and hearing their situations, I stopped comparing myself to others, knowing how different people's circumstances can be. Yeah, I'm not too concerned right now with the most specific level of reviewing an essay, which is the execution of it. The grammar, the sentence. I'm more concerned about the first two, the engagement factor, and then the engineering of the story. To be honest, the engineering, meaning the structure, the story structure, is there. It's very hidden, and it's not supported by the actual sentences very well, but the structure is there. Introduction of the problem, how they solved it. Turns out there's a bigger problem, and solving that problem is the bigger climax, and then there's the resolution. So there's clearly a structure here, so I don't want to take that away from this. And honestly, the premise itself about switching schools and then realizing they made a mistake and then wanting to switch and switching back, that's pretty compelling. Okay, that's pretty compelling. But gosh, it's just totally masked. Yeah, there just needs to be more specific details and more focus on exactly why they wanted to switch back. I really want to know what was in this email, but right now, as I said before, I'm honestly siding more with the parents and kind of empathizing with them more than the writer. Yeah, you didn't give enough time. You're just running from your problems. Yeah, without describing what those problems are, I can see where they're coming from. And this, okay, generally, I mean, I'll say something more specific about this last paragraph. It's a very generic resolution. It is an ending, that's for sure, but it's a space where more insight could be provided, or just take it out and use that word count for describing, giving more vivid examples, more specific details about what exactly happened in the events leading up to this, and let the reader make their own conclusions about what you learned. You never want to forget that there is a reader, that they have their own agency, they have their own intelligence, they can connect the dots and fill in the gaps just as well as you can. And so there's an art in making sure that what you're writing isn't to what I call just hand-holding. You don't want to hand-hold the reader. Otherwise, it insults their intelligence. For engagement, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. It honestly has a great premise, but it doesn't have a good hook. It spends a lot of time describing the problem and the emotions that the writer feels about the problem, but not enough time showing what he did about it. It also has a fairly cliché summary at the end. For engineering, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It has a good story arc, but again, there's just too much summary. For execution, 4 out of 10. There was repetitive language, sentence level issues, grammar issues, all of which disrupted the reading flow. Which means that overall, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. It's a good start, but the engagement factor just isn't there. We need more scenes and specific details so that the story can unfold on its own. Less summaries, less telling, and more showing. Again, it's a great topic, and if it's constructed properly, it could really shine. Now, if you'd like to submit your own essay for me to review in a future video, I'll leave a link in the description. I can't promise that I'll be able to review every submission, but I'll try my best to help as many as I can. You don't need a perfect essay or a perfect story. A rough draft is totally fine. If your essay is selected, I'll walk through what's working, what isn't, and how I would improve it using the 3 E's: engagement, engineering, and execution. If that sounds helpful, send it over, and I'll see you in the next one.